Hello everyone, I'm Brian. Welcome back. Let's go ahead and continue.
Let's take some questions from our local students. Yes, please.
As a young man many decades ago, I was attracted to Vedanta because I thought it would show me the truth of the secret of the universe. And from what you tell us, you tell Vedanta really tells you how to relieve suffering.
Right.
Is that a consolation prize of what I got into rather than finding the truth? I've been given how to relieve the suffering, or is that a wrong question to ask to begin with?
Okay. So you said that you came to Vedanta in your quest for truth. The quest for truth is a philosophical orientation, right? Your goal is truth. If your goal is truth, that is a perspective of philosophy. Vedanta is not a philosophy, as we've discussed before. Philosophy, we can say, is a quest for knowledge, a quest for truth. Vedanta is, on the other hand, a solution to the problem of suffering. Now, what's interesting about this situation, so you came to Vedanta for truth, and what you got instead is arguably something far better. There's a term in Sanskrit for this, samvadi brahma. Brahma means a mistake. And usually mistakes have negative consequences. Occasionally, a mistake can have a positive consequence. So the example they give is if you're walking down a beach and you see something shiny, and you think maybe it's a piece of glass. You bend down and it's a gem. Not a piece of glass, but it's a gemstone. So you thought it was a piece of glass, you made a mistake. But that mistake had a positive outcome. So this is what happens in Vedanta. One who is attracted to Vedanta from a philosophical perspective, that is seeking truth, seeking spiritual knowledge, seeking spiritual wisdom, if that person later discovers that Vedanta is not philosophy, Vedanta instead is a solution to the problem of suffering, then that mistake has a good outcome. That's like instead of finding the glass, you got a gemstone. Instead of finding philosophical wisdom, you can gain freedom from suffering. So that's a really great example of the samvadi brahma, a mistake that has a good consequence. Any follow-up? Okay, good. Another question here, please.
So for a long time, the consciousness was kind of banned word from the science, like modern science. So nowadays, like maybe for a couple of decades, the Western science started to investigate into the question of consciousness. But there are like over 20 theories what is consciousness, and most of them are like physicalist, right? The brain is generating the consciousness.
Yes, yes.
So how do you think, why is this such a big gap between modern science and the Vedantic perspective?
Okay, very good. I think maybe our online students couldn't hear the question, so let me restate it. I think maybe we need a microphone here we'll use in the future. We'll try that. The question is this. Science until the last few decades has pretty much ignored consciousness. But in the last few decades, there's been a radical change both in neuroscience and what's called philosophy of mind in these two fields.
Real quick, I want to kind of say a little bit something here. I don't think there was a change per se. Again, I don't know what the truth is. This is merely my opinion. It's just that there's so many people now that we are able to do more things because there's so much more people. So there's still the same number of people in farming science and technology science and galactic science, like space science, and then also into medicine. And medicine has expanded in terms of the type of sciences, pills, um, how things work in our body. And then obviously consciousness. The reason why I assume the reason why the consciousness wasn't very popular is because it wasn't really an issue. It's not a problem. So why look for a problem when there's no problem per se? Obviously, there are some problems, but it wasn't very big. There were more, how to say, relevant problems at the time. Finding cures for diseases, finding ways to repair tissue damage or nerve damage or cancer. Those are immediate problems that needs to be fixed. Whereas finding out consciousness is just like a like a I don't know, side mission. That's not the right word. Just something that it's fun, something that you do in your spare time, because there isn't a thing. I believe, again, this is merely my opinion. There is no thing that consciousness can solve in terms of the physical body. In terms of mental health and all that, I believe so. And this is also on the rise about mental health. So I think maybe this are going hand in hand. Where, okay, so what's going? Well, maybe not. I don't know. I'm not too sure, but perhaps there is maybe a correlation between the mental health issues and consciousness, trying to find out what's going on. I don't know for sure. Again, all my opinion here. I could be completely wrong, but this is just what I think it is based on the limited knowledge that I know. So again, as we get more and more people in the world, we have more people into these fields, which we can expand the field. Because obviously, getting into like science is very hard. Getting into any of these, science institutions and laboratories, you have to be freaking smart. No doubt there. But yeah, I think just it's not necessarily that there was a big turn. I think it's just more people are into these fields now, and now that we have solution to some things, we're able to explore more problems. And with more people, we can examine more problems, and as more problems arise, we expand the field. It's not that we deviate from one to another. I think it's just that we expanded. I hope that makes sense. Hey, that's my opinion.
In the field of neuroscience and in the field called philosophy of mind, there's a lot of inquiry now into what is consciousness. And you mentioned, and I say there are probably 20 theories, maybe more, where scientists are trying to explain what is consciousness, and their theories are all over the place. I'll just give you a couple of examples. One theory is this is Dennett, these people. Your experience of being a conscious being is illusory. How's that? It feels like you're conscious, but you're not. It's some kind of illusion. Believe it or not, this is a mainstream scientific answer.
And I wonder if he's going to say we're in a computer simulation is another one.
Many scientists want to establish that what we call consciousness is biological or quantum activity. And I say biological or quantum because most scientists understand that mere biology doesn't seem to be able to give rise to consciousness. So now they're trying to go further beyond biology and find some physical basis for the existence of consciousness. A minority of scientists, like this David Chalmers, famous philosopher, accept the fact that there is such a thing as consciousness. You can't deny the existence of consciousness, but he thinks, and many others think, that consciousness is part of creation. Everything that exists has consciousness. So far it sounds like Vedanta, except watch. It means that a little atom has a little bit of consciousness, a larger molecule has a little more, a larger cell has even more, and guess what? In your brain are 100 billion neurons, cells. And the modern theory is the combined consciousness of all those cells gives rise to human experience of consciousness. Only problem is they have no way of explaining how consciousness of one cell and consciousness of another cell can communicate. They admit they have this theory, but they admit that the theory is defective. Anyway, it's a huge field, a lot of activity going on, and scientists are, this is my interpretation, scientists are thrashing about trying to understand what is consciousness because they are using principles of science to investigate what is consciousness. Now, what is science? Science is based on observation, right? The scientific method begins with observation. You observe at the beginning when you make the hypothesis. You observe at the end when you prove your hypothesis. So observation is central to science. There's no science without observation. And then science uses various tools to study everything. So now we have powerful telescopes and space telescopes looking out into the cosmos. We have powerful microscopes and electron microscopes looking at the micro world. Science begins with observation and uses tools like microscopes and mathematics to understand what is observed. The approach of Vedanta could not be more different. And let me show you the defect of that scientific orientation. The basic defect is this: science studies the observed. Consciousness is the observer. Huh? That's it. The orientation of science is outwards into the observed. Consciousness is not something out there that you can observe. Consciousness is, and they're starting to figure out, consciousness is what they like the word subjectivity. One famous philosopher, Nagel, says, "What does it feel like to be a bat?" It feels like something to be a bat. That is subjectivity. That bat has some kind of conscious experience. The bat has the experience of feeling like a bat. That subjectivity can be known only to the bat. How do you know what it feels like to be a bat? By studying bats, will we ever know what it feels like to be a bat? This is Nagel's argument. So, the basic problem with scientific orientation is it's focused on observation, external observation, and that process of observation takes you to the observed and not to the observer. The essence of the observer is consciousness. So the basic orientation of science is switched around in the wrong direction. I've given the example before. Imagine a scientist looking through the lens of a microscope. You ask, what are you looking for? I'm looking for consciousness. All right? It sounds a little odd, but imagine. And of course, if you know a little bit of Vedanta, then you would probably tell the scientist, you're looking in the wrong direction. Consciousness is on the other side of the lens. So this, in my opinion, is why science is thrashing about, coming up with amazing theories, most of which are quite strange. And there's another theory.
Oh, real quick before we get to that next one, so I don't forget. I do believe science is in fact looking inwards, but it's looking inwards in the physical realm, as in it can literally look at the brain, which is inside technically, but it's still not the right direction. It's not the right inside. I think. But obviously, science can look inside, but that's only through the physical means. The brain activity, the electrical signals, the hemispheres of your brain, the whatever else is up there, the gray matter or whatever. So, yes, they technically can look inside, but it's not the same inside that I believe Swami here is talking about. Because they can literally grab a piece of brain and look it through a microscope and maybe fire some electrons in it to, stimulate it like it's alive. Ooh, man, that'd be kind of weird. Could you imagine taking out someone's brain, hooking up everything necessary to keep the brain alive and functioning, and it's firing? Oh my gosh, could you imagine a brain in a tube, and then you give, again, like I said, you give it everything it needs to be alive, like it's inside a human body, but it doesn't have all the connections to the five senses that we have. But then you observe the brain, you see the brain probably firing like crazy, like, what's going on? I can't see, I can't feel, I can't smell, I can't taste, I can't touch. And it's just like going crazy. Anyways, but again, the point is that we can observe the inside, but not the inside. There was another thing I wanted to say, but I can't remember now because I went on to that tangent. So let's continue.
Because of the amount of intelligence, this is integrated intelligence theory. Because of the amount of information stored in your head, all of that combined information gives rise to consciousness. If you ask how, there's no answer. You just say that's what we observe. Wherever there's lots of information, there's consciousness. Correlation doesn't prove anything, but anyway, that's the theory. So science will continue to come up with theory after theory, but if those theories are based on science, they will fail because they've taken the perspective of observing that which is observed, that which is observable. Consciousness is not observed. Consciousness is not the observable. Consciousness belongs to the observer. Now, just to finish this off, there are a handful of scientists who don't practice science. There are a handful of scientists who may study some Vedanta. And if they introduce those Vedantic teachings into their research, they may come to learn something about the nature of consciousness. But whatever they discover will not be based on scientific research, but instead will be based on the non-scientific teachings of Advaita Vedanta that they may study. Okay.
Real quick with that one. Again, I made this argument before too, and I guess this is where I will pause it at too, so it's a good spot. And here's a question for everyone too. I've asked this many times, and many people have answered it. And it's about AI and computers. And people in the comments, a few, said that, so far I think agree with me, that there's no difference. So let me go ahead and state it. So, we create a robot. And this robot has a brain, CPU. It has memory, like a hard drive, or NVMe, M.2, SSD, etc. It has RAM, temporary storage, temporary memory, because once the computer shuts off, it's gone. But what's stored in RAM can go to long term, SSD, hard drive, spindle drive, whatever. Kind of like ours, we have short-term memory and long-term memory. We have eyes, so cameras. We have ears, so microphone. We have a mouth, speaker. We have a nose. I don't know what that is equivalent into a robot, but let's say a sniffer thing that can sense. Oh yeah, they do actually have something where they can sense smells, even to a very high degree. So right now, this robot has everything that a human has. It has a brain, CPU, again, all the stuff, right? You can make it in any kind of shape or form for the type of body. And you're saying, well, it doesn't have true consciousness. But I'll make this argument. This is the reason why I'm kind of torn with it. It's the fact that nothing exists outside of consciousness. So therefore, everything is. It's a weird wording. A lot of people have kind of made an argument with me with this, like a debate on it. Debate. Anyways, it's just very difficult to put into words. So basically, consciousness and material things are one and the same. There is no separation between the two. Without Brahman consciousness, it does not exist. If it exists, it is consciousness. So this is consciousness. Therefore, the robot itself is also consciousness. Now, the robot isn't born the same way like we are, but this body's made of the same material things of the earth, like the robot. Maybe ours is a bit more sophisticated, like Sadhguru would say. We are the most sophisticated machine on the planet Earth. Absolutely. But because that's just the limitations that we have at the moment. As we go further in the future, our computers, microchips, nanochips, whatever is going to be so far ahead that they'll perhaps surpass humans. So the question then lies, are robots conscious? I say yes. And I've said my argument already that if it exists, it must be consciousness. Like this is consciousness. If it exists at all, it is not separate from Brahman consciousness. If it exists, it is Brahman consciousness. If it doesn't exist, therefore it's not. Because if it doesn't exist, then So, robot exists. Robot has memory, vision, smell, taste, hearing, touch, like humans. Short-term memory, RAM, long-term memory, hard drive, CPU, brain. So the only difference is one is flesh and one is metal. One is constructed while the other is still constructed by, cells and stuff. But nonetheless, we're both constructed, both made out of the materials from Earth. So, question again, are robots conscious? Now, again, if you've answered before, go ahead and say it again if you wish to. Again, I'm not going to force anyone to say. You can literally say nothing in this video if you want. But are robots consciousness? I kind of want to send this out to Swami Tadatmananda, especially with his Q&A. Because I need to find... I think he did say a video which he says either robot are not consciousness or if they are conscious. So anyways, there's the question out there. You can say I'm completely wrong. If you do, please let me know because I need to understand. And if I'm completely right, which would be amazing, I doubt I'm ever completely wrong or right. It's somewhere probably in the middle. I might be right. But again, this is how so far I've understood Advaita Vedanta and the material world as well. Consciousness is not created, it exists in everything. It is everything. So therefore, if it is everything, robots are conscious. So let me know. And that's the end of this video. If you like my content, please consider subscribing, thumbs up, and sound down below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next vid.